Hey, what is up? Welcome to this episode of the Wantrepreneur to Entrepreneur podcast. As always, I'm your host, Brian Lofermento, and gosh, I know you guys hear it from me every single week, but I am so excited about today's episode. We are joined by an incredible guest who, since he's landed on my calendar, I've been so excited for this conversation. I have been a customer of his work and a beneficiary of his work. He's an incredible guy. I'm joined today by Travis Rosser, who's an entrepreneur, speaker, and author with decades of experience in the software industry. A lot of people will know his work because he co-founded Kajabi, which is a knowledge commerce platform that has helped thousands of people launch their own small businesses. And you're going to see in my conversation with Travis today, I'm actually going to argue it has impacted millions of people because of the amplification effect of his work. And those thousands of people who launched their businesses on Kajabi have generated more than 2.5 billion with a B dollars in revenue. As an author, Travis has written a best-selling book called You Inc. I'm so excited to ask him about the biggest takeaways for you listeners that he wrote about inside of his book. In that book, he teaches the value of monetizing your passions and expertise, and he shares the path to building a brand around yourself, which you all know. I think it's so important that we show our authentic selves in our businesses. Now, Travis is also up to really interesting things in current times. He's really leveraged all of his experiences into a business that he is launching called CoachSnap. So I'm personally also excited to hear from Travis himself, what he's up to there. But without further ado, let's dive into my interview with Travis Rosser. Travis, what is up, man? Welcome to the Wantrepreneur to Entrepreneur podcast.
Awesome, Brian. Thanks for having me. This is going to be fun. I'm excited.
Heck yeah. I'm so excited for it. And obviously you heard the intro that I gave to you. I don't think the intro even does justice what the heck you've accomplished as an entrepreneur on this planet. So fill in the gaps for listeners. Who the heck is Travis?
Well, I appreciate that. It's kind of surreal sometimes to think about what Kajabi has done. And like when you say that figure, $2.5 billion, that is incredible because those are lives changed. And over the years, I've had opportunity to meet a lot of Kajabi customers that have become Kajabi millionaires. And that is mind-blowing to me because here's this crazy little idea that Kenny and I had way back in 2009. And, we took the time to try to build it from scratch with no customers, no connections, and to turn it into what it is today is pretty amazing. So I'm excited to be on here. I'm excited to tell my story as an entrepreneur. I definitely for a long time was a wantrepreneur. I think I didn't really understand the concept of entrepreneur when I was younger. I just wanted to be able to make money and do things that changed my circumstances as a kid and then growing up, and eventually, led me to building a Kajabi. In fact, that's why I wrote the book You Inc. is I had interviewed a lot of Kajabi customers and I heard their story. And then, I sat down to write all the stories, and then I realized my story and how it led me to meet someone like Kenny, to partner up with him and to build Kajabi. And I think that's all of us have this story we're on, and not everybody has an opportunity to sit back and write a book. But if we think about where we are on our journey, there's no telling what the next chapter is. And I'm just excited. I'm grateful for what we accomplished. I am so proud of Kajabi customers all the time because it's such a cool thing. It's funny, you say I've done, and I'm like, I know I'm part of that, but man, I was just a guy with an idea that got a group of people together and we built this thing, and look at what it turned into,
Heck
it's awesome.
Yeah. And that's exactly what it takes. And Travis, I couldn't help but smile when you said that word out loud. You said, back in 2009, which in my head, I view you guys are one of the OGs of this new wave of entrepreneurship, being able to turn your knowledge into a business and into a real flourishing, thriving, successful business that positively impacts people all over the world. In the grand scheme of the world, Travis, 2009 is not that long ago. The fact that you guys did this so quickly, like you said it, no connections, no customers, take us back to those beginning days.
And I think the story of Kajabi is what all entrepreneurs to do is find a problem and find a way to solve it. And you can do that through software, services, products, events. There's all kinds, writing a book, who knows what it is. But Kenny and I had been friends forever. We had been in the software space down here in Orange County, Southern California. And we had business ideas all the time. I had worked in the software space. He was a CTO for multiple companies. And we just had this idea of what if you could sell your knowledge? And at that time, people were doing this. I mean, you could buy DVDs and learn how to. I mean, there's so many things. I remember the guy that would have the late night infomercials. He'd teach you how to make tiny little classified ads, and you could buy his DVDs. He'd send them in the mail. Or the guy that would teach you how to use, Microsoft Windows or whatever. And Kenny and I just had this idea. What if we built an online version of this? And back then, we were following a lot of the marketers of the time, the Frank Kerns, the Andy Jenkins, Jeff Walker. Some people might have no idea who that is, but back then they were like a big deal in like launching a knowledge business, teaching about marketing online. And so through using something like Twitter back then in 2009, I just started reaching out to people, and I used my skill set. I was a designer and a UX software guy. I could build out apps and like plan them out. And I reached out to back then Andy Jenkins, and I started doing free work. I'm like, hey, I can fix up your brand. Hey, I can fix up your WordPress blog. And really, that is how you get started with no connections, is take whatever skill you have and share it for free, add value. They always say it's not what you know, it's who you know. It's both. You need to get to know a lot of people, and you need to get good at something. And, that can be anything. You could be good at organizing. You could be good at making phone calls. You could be good at making websites. It doesn't matter. Go towards something you're passionate about and start sharing. Even when we first were trying to connect with those marketers, the Kajabi idea was not mature yet. We just knew we wanted to build something to help in this digital marketing space. Back then, everything was on WordPress. You could buy plugins and do exactly what Kajabi did. You could also do it custom for like hundreds of thousands of dollars. You could build your own password protected area. And, Kenny and I just made those inroads, and eventually we got a meeting with Andy Jenkins, and we said, here's what we want to build. He had a course he wanted to do back then, and we're like, let us do all of it. And we went in there, we took his videos, we coded it all up, we made it look really beautiful. And that's another thing, is the first couple customers, you got to make sure they have like rock star experience. I mean, we were fully white glove. I mean, we hired some people here locally from Oakley, the sunglass company, and they told us that Oakley's marketing strategy is market to the front row. And that's pretty common now because of influencers and everything. But back then, that wasn't a thing where you would go and like try to connect with high level people. And so for us, since we didn't have a lot of money to pay them to use our app and talk about us, we just built this incredible experience. And in February of 2010, Andy launches and makes over $1 million. And I remember we're watching the back end and we're just blown away. He had this incredible video marketing course back then to teach you how to make online videos and how to market. And that's when we knew, like, holy crap, we're on to something. And through that one relationship and hitting that home run with that first customer, we worked with Frank Kern and Jeff Walker and John Reese and all these guys, eventually Brennan Burchard. And in fact, it's so funny. Most people have no idea these names, how fast marketing has moved. But back then, those were the guys that taught you how to market online. And so they used Kajabi, and then we had a small little link in the footer that said, powered by Kajabi. And if you clicked on it, all it was a landing page because we weren't done building the software. And I think that's another thing as an entrepreneur. You got to leap before you really know if there's water down there. And sometimes that can be difficult, but sometimes you have this undeniable faith that it was going to work. Like, we always knew it was going to work, even when it was falling apart. And sometimes I just had this vision and I knew it made sense. Even when we would tell people, like, why would we do that? Can't you just put it on YouTube? Or the silliest things people would tell us back then. But we knew this idea would work, and then we just went for it. And in 2010, October, we launched, and here we are 12 years later, $2.5 billion, like you said, that revenue for average people too. That's what I love, is it's not just about these gurus or whatever. It's like a person with knowledge can start a business. And I love that personally.
Yeah, it's incredible. And I think that's where you and I share the same spirit, is really like the individual, the solopreneur can make anything of themselves, because there are tools like Kajabi. Obviously, Kajabi is one of a million different tools that solopreneurs have the power to use. But Travis, I also want to call one thing out, because I think you are uniquely positioned to answer this, in that one of the pitfalls of those solopreneurs, particularly the beginner entrepreneurs, is that they look at 8-figure businesses like Kajabi and they say, how are they doing marketing? How are they getting customers and clients? And, Facebook ads are glorious and sexy. It's so sexy to talk about running a YouTube ad campaign. There's a lot of different ways to do it. But what I like about your story is you guys were just hustling. You guys were just hitting people up one-on-one. Talk to us about how those beginning days of marketing, what your focus was and what the strategies were that you guys were thinking about, versus how that changed over time as your company grew.
Yeah, I think as an entrepreneur, comparison is death. So don't ever compare. Your journey is unique. It's important to have mentors. It's important to see others that have gone before you and kind of model what they did. But I mean, the hustle game is free, especially if you have all the skill set to fulfill what you're promising and you've gotten good enough at it to where they're like, holy crap, this is really cool. That was our strategy, was to meet these guys and then to bring a whole new level, because we had been in software at that point. I had been doing web design, web application design, landing page design for over 10 years. Kenny had been in technology at the same time. So we could come into help these guys that had kind of been hiring freelancers and stuff. And we just killed it, and we did that every single time. And then they would tell a friend and then another friend. And pretty soon people are like waiting for us to help them. And at the same time, we made sure that we had like a landing page and we were collecting our interest list. And that's important too, is make sure you have a way that people can get in contact with you. I mean, with social media now, this is easy. From Instagram to TikTok, man, you can build a following so fast. And we just went out there, and through their successes and through us it's funny, the secrecy of it all is what made it even more popular, because people didn't know what it was and they were all excited. And I mean, by the time we launched, we had a lot of lovers, but we had haters too, which is crazy, because people are like, oh, I don't know what this is. And it's, you create so much buzz that you're going to get both sides, but you don't have to worry about creating buzz. If you can help one person at a time, that's how this works. I mean, it really is like, take what you're good at, take the problem you can solve for someone and start helping people, and for free. I mean, that's the thing, is we didn't make any money off these customers. It was pure free. And it wasn't like with a promise of you're going to promote for you. It's just like, hey, try out our thing, tell us what you need. And we improved it based on what they needed. And I think as a starting off entrepreneur, you do that as much as you can, as much free and knowing free for the value of you're getting better at your craft, or it does promote you also.
Yeah, let me ask you this, Travis. I'm not sure I've ever asked a guest this, but it would be really interesting to hear your take on it through the lens of hindsight. Obviously, we always say hindsight is 20/20, and you saw Kajabi grow from literally zero to a multi-million-dollar a year business. And so my question to you is, in hindsight, obviously we could talk about the things that you did do, but what I'm hearing as part of your beginner days is that there were a lot of things you guys didn't do. You probably didn't have a great email automation or new customer sign-up flow or any of those things. So I guess my question to you is, what are the things that you think were important that you didn't focus on? You're glad you didn't focus on them. That may become important later down the road, but in hindsight, you're just like, man, we didn't even at all think about that, and it was good for us to do that.
Well, I think the biggest thing is we didn't focus on paid ads at all. We didn't have marketing campaigns. So we didn't have to focus on making sure we had a good conversion rate, making sure we had a good landing page. We were doing it the other way around, where we were helping these people do incredible in their business. And because of that, I mean, we called it a whisper campaign. I always think of it, it's like, what if Tiger Woods won the Masters with your golf clubs? That's huge marketing. Not everybody can do that, but in small markets, you might be able to. But I think, and that eventually became hard for us as Kajabi to figure out, how do we do paid ads? Because how do you explain Kajabi? And it's interesting. That's what led me, and we can talk about this later, to the concept of CoachSnap, because I think coaching is simple and people understand it and they understand the issues, versus if you've never heard of Kajabi and you're listening to this, you're like, what the heck is it? And that was part of the allure too, but it's hard to create advertising campaigns when nobody knows what you do. And I think in advertising, I will always keep it simple. I love the name Kajabi. It's a great name, but it's also like a Yahoo where you just don't know what it is. And I think when you're starting out, try to keep your naming and your branding simple. Also, build a great product. Like, I think some people are like, Travis, I hardly ever see you on social media. Well, I've been in like the lab for the past 2 years building CoachSnap, like focused on making sure that this app can make a dent in the coaching space. And there's nothing wrong with being out there all the time and making sure you're like, like building your brand, but also make sure that you're getting ready to deliver whatever that is. And if you have to go quietly and help some customers do incredibly well, then you should go do that. It's okay. Like, social media will be there. People will be there. How often do you see an actor or someone go away for a while and all of a sudden they're back with that movie and you're like, oh my God, I love this. Like, sometimes you need to just go out there and be in the lab and help people quietly. You don't always do it to showcase or show off. You're doing it for like I said, to build the reps, to get good at whatever you're doing, and to build those connections.
Yeah, I love that. Reps is such an important thing that we talk about here on the Wantrepreneur to Entrepreneur podcast. You inevitably get better at things the more reps that you have. So really good advice. Travis, to those people who are listening and saying, okay, so you guys were out there hustling and you were making these key strategic partnerships that helped you grow. What were the inflection points? Where did you start seeing things take off? And then how did your approach to marketing, to fulfillment, and your approach to sales change once you did have that traction?
Yeah, well, once we got out of the phase of helping these like high-level guys, we had to really get ready for a launch. And that's when we had to focus on our own landing pages, our own, email follow-ups, and everything was very custom back then. But we also knew that if we could get these people in and treat them the same way and help them become successful, that was huge. And I think the biggest change, pivot, inflection point, whatever you want to call it, was the launch and going from having like 5 customers to thousands of customers. And that was a growing pain for us. In fact, we had major issues with the app and all these people, and we had to really hunker down at a whole nother level and turn into a company that could handle that many customers. And we were in that fog for over a month. I remember we sent out a survey to all Kajabi customers, said, how are you using Kajabi? And when those results started coming back and people are like, I'm teaching how to fly a helicopter, how to become a fireman, horse ballet, like calligraphy, I was like, wow, this is cool. Because I think that was a new change when we went from these guys that were teaching marketing and online stuff to real people. And I think for me, that was when I really saw the Kajabi story open up. Even though it was already happening, I was like, we are building something that is going to impact the world. And I think when we started changing and focusing on that, and then right after that, we started developing the Kajabi Hero program, because as in SaaS software, you always want to find what makes a lifetime customer. And one thing for us was they made $1,000, they stayed. So then we realized, what if we focus on helping every single customer get to $1,000? And that was when the Kajabi Hero program started. I remember I started interviewing them. And for me, that's when the magic of Kajabi really became real, because I heard firsthand, just like this in interviews, of real people and how Kajabi changed their lives. Like, they got to quit their job. It saved them from bankruptcy. Their marriage was better. I mean, the stories I heard they were emotional sometimes, because here's this crazy app, this idea we had that just, a year before, once we launched, we were like, what the heck did we do? Like, it was overwhelming to launch your first ever SaaS, to now to have this feeling of purpose and mission. I think that's something that the brand of Kajabi, especially during those days, was it had this mission, and that doesn't always happen with a brand. Doing it again, I can see the things that are necessary to do that. I mean, authenticity is one, the desire to help people is another one, and then focusing on customer stories is huge. And that was really probably the biggest pivot for us marketing wise. And that's how we continued to grow. I mean, if you think about it, we did focus on those first customers, but those were like the top level, gurus versus the average customer. That was where our growth years during those, 2015, 16, 17, we really grew because we focused on the customer. And some of those customers are literally friends of mine. My son plays ice hockey here in Southern California. We went back to Michigan, and one of the customers is like a good family friend. And her whole family came. Her son had like signs and for my son playing hockey. And I was just like, how cool is it that I built this business and then I have these friends all over the world? I mean, it's pretty incredible what becoming an entrepreneur can do, not just for money, but the impact you can make.
Yeah, I love the clarity that you had around your customers and the commitment that you had. To me, that recognition of if we can get them to make $1,000, they will stay with us. So many entrepreneurs, those of you listening, sit down and ask yourself, what's the one result that I could give my customers that would make them say, I love you forever, I want to stay with you forever? What is that result you could deliver to them? So often we get stuck looking at our own businesses, our own products, our own services. You just heard Travis shared, Kajabi heroes. Your customers are the heroes. They are the ones that you need to be obsessing with. Travis, one thing that I think is interesting when you tell this story is that a lot of newer entrepreneurs, they think that things get easier when they have more customers, when they have more revenue coming in, which I always remind people, the easiest time is when you don't have customers because you only have one job. Go get those customers. Talk to us about some of those times that it got more complicated and difficult.
Yeah, I think, I had been an entrepreneur my whole life. Literally from when I was a kid, I sold our oranges that grew in the orange grove at our house, to mowing people's lawns, and to eventually building websites. And I always had one or two clients at a time. But then, we launched Kajabi, and we go from, I think at launch time, we probably had 6 or 7 of those first customers. And then it was like thousands. And that was an insane moment, but it's also about, you have to go outside your comfort zone. If you want to go to the next level, you're going to go to a lot of levels you've never been to. And I think it depends on what kind of entrepreneur you want to be, but you don't have to do this, but if you want to go to that level, you got to be okay. Like I said, almost like jumping before you look. You just go for it. And trusting that it'll be there. It's like the Steve Jobs thing. Steve always said that, you can't connect the dots looking forward. It's only when you look back. And that's what being an entrepreneur is don't connect the dots, just jump to the next dot. And a lot of those dots were scary. And that moment of realizing, and we had so many trouble ticks of issues. Like, here's one of our major mistakes we made. We had an incredible team. Some of those team members are still with Kajabi from the Philippines, but the time zone is like way off. I think they're like a full day ahead of us. And we launched on a Thursday. Friday comes and it's their Saturday. And so all these trouble tickets are going into our systems, and Kenny and I are working on stuff. And then Saturday morning comes. Now it's 2 days with no customer reps, and there's thousands of tickets. And Kenny texts me, I'm at my son's soccer game on Saturday morning, and he's like, we got a problem. And I went over to his house, and we found every computer we could. We put it on his kitchen table. We got neighbors, everybody, and just started answering these trouble tickets. And I went home that night and thinking, oh my God, what the heck did we do? Like, why did we do this? Like, why did we put this responsibility on ourselves? And, during that time, I learned a lot about anxiety. I went to the ER one time thinking I had a heart attack, but it was actually just anxiety. And now I understand how that works. But I am so grateful that I did that, because that was like a shell that I had to kind of, it's the whole butterfly, you have to leave the cocoon. The lobster has to outgrow his shell, and it hurts, and it's okay, and you will survive. And there is another chapter. It's just all part of it. And you, like I said, you can look to mentors. I mean, back then there was a company called 37th Signals, and they created something called Basecamp, which is still around, Basecamp HQ, if you Google that. And we watched what they did, and we really were like, we want to be like that one day. And, the good news is it definitely got better. Pain points will force you to change or die. But if you make changes and you fix things, you can evolve to the next level, and eventually getting bigger isn't a problem. And eventually you have people that are taking that same responsibility and role that you had, and you can start leveraging as you grow. And technology too. Like, In 2010, we launched, and then in 2015, we rebuilt the app. We launched again, and it was so smooth compared to 2010. No big bug issues, no customer support issues. I mean, you do learn. It's not like every time it's painful. I know that as we're recording this, I'm going to launch CoachSnap coming up in these coming months, and a part of me is a little scared. I'm like, do I really want to put myself back in this position of all these people depending on what you built? I mean, that's part of being an entrepreneur, though, is you got to enjoy that kind of unknown and the ability to deliver, because it sure is fun when it works out. I mean, it's way more fun than to not trying.
Yeah, I had the benefit of seeing your face. Obviously, we're doing this over video. Listeners may not have been able to see the smile that was in your face when you said, yeah, I went to the hospital because I thought I had a heart attack, but it was anxiety. There's so many moments in our entrepreneurial lives where we do think that this is the end of the road in so many different ways. So I love that that's such a core memory for you now, Travis. I want to ask you this because it sounds to me, as someone who's listening to this growth story, this incredible growth story, it sounds like really momentum was just something that carried you guys from phase to phase to phase. So I want to ask you, were there intentional things that you guys did to help build that momentum? For example, were you incredible at getting word of mouth referrals from existing customers? Were you incredible at doing monthly promos to your growing audience? What was it that kept that momentum building?
You know, it's interesting. I think in hindsight, we can look back, but at the time, we were just trying things. We definitely got really good at customer support because we never wanted that to happen again, where we just left everybody hanging. I think to this day, Kajabi is still very good at customer support. And they even have programs where you could pay more and get even more support. So I think our problems allowed us to make changes. So we got good at that. We definitely got good at, they call it the Kajabi Partner Program, but really just making sure that we rewarded and we encourage others to bring in customers. And I think back then, they're still doing it, but obviously I was very involved back then, is telling the story of the customer was something that we got really good at and had huge success. So I heard this once: lean into whatever is good. Whatever's going well, lean into that. I think entrepreneurs, we want to grind and hustle. And sometimes, man, you are swimming up the river and life and destiny is trying to show you the river is going this direction. Just get a paddle, man. Steer. You can't always go upstream. Sometimes the river will take you exactly where you need to go if you pay attention and stop just trying to survive. Like the whole thing, like a drowning person, like, is so dangerous versus if they just would stroke and swim a little bit, they would survive. And I think as entrepreneurs, we feel like we're dying and drowning. And if you're in that position, sometimes it's okay to make a major pivot, but also, is there anything going well, anything at all? And you got to do that, because there was tons of time where we thought our growth was stale, if you will, because we kept trying paid ads. We couldn't find the right paid ad campaign, but really it was about that continuing to improve. Kajabi always continued to improve, and I'm so grateful that we made that pivot to focus on the success of those customers, because that's what got us and them where they are today.
Yeah, I love that. And I love these insights and perspectives and, of course, lessons and real tangible strategy from you. As we get towards the end of this interview, I'm excited to ask you, Travis, because you and I didn't speak off air about CoachSnap and what the heck you're up to. Give us some insights, as much as you can spill the beans on that.
Yeah, sure. So in 2018, I exited Kajabi and I took some time off and I wrote the book You Inc. And it really, like I said earlier, was just about Kajabi customers, their journey. But as I was writing it, I started realizing my journey. So that's in there too. So a lot of what we've talked about is in the book. And then, I would go speak and I'd meet people and they're like, oh, I'm going to go join Kajabi. And I'm like, that's cool. And I'm like, I want to be part of that journey again. And my wife is a coach. I've done a lot of coaching myself for people trying to do SaaS startups. And I was like looking around and I couldn't find a good app that helps you like Kajabi helped you as a coach. There's plenty of apps, but I realized, what if I did what we did back then and fixed a lot of the problems, organized a lot of the confusion, and built a simple app that allows you to grow and automate your coaching business. And I love that too, because Kajabi is difficult. Not just using an app, but building a course is difficult. I mean, if you've never done that and you're listening to this, imagine building a course on anything. I mean, I remember having a speech class and you'd have to do like a how-to, like how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And if you've never done that, that can be really difficult. Plus you got to shoot video and audio, but how easy is it to help one person and then help a group of people? And really that's what I'm excited about, is helping anybody who has knowledge and they want to turn it into a business and help them monetize it. That's really what CoachSnap is all about. It's going to do things like scheduling and training and tracking, billing, a lot of things that you could do with 4 or 5 apps, but what if it was all in one place, which is kind of what the Kajabi model is in a way, even though now you need a lot of other things too. But really just a simple business coaching app is what CoachSnap is.
Heck yeah, I love it. I can't wait to get my hands on it and see what the heck you're up to there. Not only do I have so many different students who are in that sort of business and could benefit from it, nutrition coaches, fitness coaches, business coaches, of course. People coaching in all productivity is a big hotspot for coaches right now. So many different types of coaches who do want to share and serve people one-on-one. And I can't wait to see what CoachSnaps looks like, what it functions like. Travis, you got me chomping at the bit. So this episode airs towards the end of May 2022. What's the timeline on CoachSnap coming into the world?
Yeah, we should be launching in June. I say this now. Here we are. We're in the beginning of May. That's our plan. With software, you never know, but definitely the beginning of 2022 summer. Look out for CoachSnap. Just CoachSnap.com. You can check it out, and you can be one of the first. That's the other cool thing, is when we launched in 2010, we called them founders, and I have a small group that I let in a while ago, but this will be the first time that a big group can start using CoachSnap, and it'd be cool to be part of this journey with us, and let's see where this goes, you know?
Heck yeah, I love it. Travis, you have made a fan in me. I was already a big fan of your work, but I'm so excited to have this conversation with you today and really glean these pieces of insight and strategy off of you. So I'm definitely going to pick up a copy of You Inc., but I want to give you the stage for our listeners. Tell them where they can go to learn more about you, what you're up to, and of course, about CoachSnap.
Well, Brian, thank you. This has been really cool. I always get super excited talking about being an entrepreneur because it is my passion. It's my life mission, is to help others be entrepreneurs. But, just go check out CoachSnap.com. It's the best thing to find out what I'm working on. I devote all my time to that. It's great if people pick up the book also, because it'll help you just get started in your knowledge journey. But you can find that on Amazon. Just make sure you look for, I think there's someone else wrote a You Inc. Look for the black cover and my name, Travis, on there, and reach out to me through social media and let me know if you got the book or how the journey's going, because I love hearing stories of how others are taking their knowledge and turning it into a business.
Heck yeah. So you all heard it right here, right now from Travis himself. Head on over to CoachSnap.com. That's CoachSnap.com. But the most important thing I want you to know is that Travis is such a cool dude. He's one of us. We are all entrepreneurs together. He understands the entrepreneurial mind. He's super accomplished. But in communicating with him as much as I have over the past few weeks ahead of this podcast interview, I know that he's a really good dude. And that came through in today's interview. So thank you so much for joining us here today, Travis.
Thanks. It's been fun.